Good afternoon, and welcome to this webinar from ERA, the European Union Agency for Railways. I'm Cyril Martin, Communication Officer, and I will be your moderator today. As you probably know, rail is one of the safest transport modes, and European railways are among the safest in the world. But how safe are they? How can we determine the safety of the transport modes? What are the current issues? What can we do to improve the overall safety of railway? And most of all, how the progresses in safety are essential for the achievement of the single European railway area. To answer these questions and many others, we will today give you an update on the latest data reported in the annual overview for safety published last year in 2020, and we will discuss some of the current issues, improvements and actions to enhance safety for railways in Europe. After an introduction by ERA's Executive Director, Mr. Joseph Doppelbauer, and a presentation by Torben Holwald and Francesco Rotoli, who work both at the Analysis and Monitoring Unit at ERA, we will have a roundtable with our speakers that I'm very honored to welcome and introduce. Mr. Inigo Cruz, Policy Officer dealing with Rail Safety Policy at DG Move, which is the Directorate General for Mobility and Transport within the European Commission. Mr. Enno Wiebe, Technical Director of the CER, which is the Community of European Railway and Infrastructure Companies, representing around 70 railway undertakings and infrastructure managers. And Mr. Javier Moreno, Technical Manager in charge of Rail Safety and Interoperability at EIM, the European Rail Infrastructure Managers, with 16 members managing more than 50% of the European Union's railway lines. You, dear attendees, are most welcome to ask questions to our experts using the chat function, which you will find at the top right-hand corner of your screen. You can also tag questions from other attendees, which you judge valuable by clicking the thumb icon. A last word to say that this webinar is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel and our website in the coming days. May I now give the floor to Joseph Doppelbauer, the Executive Director of ERA.
Many thanks, Cyril, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's webinar on railway safety. As you know, the European Union Agency for Railways and the European Union are strongly committed to continuously improving railway safety in Europe. In this context, the analysis of the progress with safety and interoperability of the railway system in the European Union is a key element, and it is necessary to better understand the situation of European railways and its evolution in terms of safety. These data can be used to identify areas for improvement towards reaching a more efficient and more effective railway system for all citizens of Europe, and we call this effective system the Single European Railway Area. Finally, the data represent an important source of information for decision-making at EU level or at member state level. More aggregated or more non-aggregated data will certainly help in depicting an even better state of the affairs, and they will help us to understand more clearly how safety is understood and managed at operator level. Now, we are coming towards the end of the COVID pandemic. We can, to stay in railway terms, see some light at the end of the tunnel. The worldwide pandemic has certainly entailed a slowdown of the economic and railway activities, and we have seen a strong impact of COVID-19 on the transport sector. Evidently, most importantly for aviation, but also significant in rail. We have Enno Wiebe with us, and CER has made some investigations in the passenger domain. The reduction in volume reached up to 90%. We will also see that COVID will potentially impact the future travel behavior. On the one hand, commuting will be impacted by the continuation of teleworking, and, well, most probably we will see hybrid patterns to emerge, while on the other hand, we see some reluctance because many people wrongly assume that the private car is more hygienic and safer than the train or public transport in general. As ERA, we have just published by the beginning of June a report on the holistic assessment of safety risk. And in conclusion, we can say that even under extreme assumptions of the risk of a COVID infection, the risk of a car accident remains more important. So in short, travel by rail is safe, and it is especially also safe under COVID conditions. In our analysis of the progress of safety, we have used a certain methodology which refers to the terms outcomes and impacts. And those indicators are primarily drawn from the data reported under the European legal framework, but some indicators rely on non-statutory data provided by national bodies and other stakeholders on a voluntary basis. We therefore warmly thank the national safety authorities and all the other data providers for their active contribution to this report. In summary, and you will hear more about the results in a moment from Torben, but we can confirm that European railways remain among the safest in the world with regard to major accidents, which are defined as those with more than 5 fatalities. And those major accidents become increasingly rare during the last couple of years. We, however, can also see that the overall toll of railway accidents remains high. The economic cost of these significant accidents is about 3.5 billion euro per annum. We also need to admit that the progress in railway safety has been uneven across the EU member states, where the variance amongst the member states remains high. Therefore, the railway community must work relentlessly and tirelessly to continue to improve railway safety. We can never afford to be complacent. Now, I come to a critical point on the reporting of safety occurrences. Unlike European aviation and unlike maritime, railways still have not implemented a systematic and comprehensive EU-wide safety occurrence reporting scheme. Such a scheme could enable not only learning to learn efficiently from major accidents, but it could also enable to learn from incidents without victims. Several areas in which safety has been stagnating recently, such as level crossings or collisions, derailments, rolling stock fires, would particularly benefit from wider information sharing, also in particular of near misses. Anyway, we should not only count accidents and incidents. The agency has received a mandate to draft common safety methods for assessing the safety level and safety performance of railway operators at national and at union level. This so-called CSM ASLP in particular will introduce 2 other important elements. Firstly, the obligation to report on the occurrence scenario to better understand the underlying mechanisms that could lead to accidents. And second, the concept of safety performance, that is the level of maturity of a railway operator to manage the risk control measures put in place to control the risk of its operation. When implemented, these measures should provide an additional angle to assess how safety is managed. The ongoing digital revolution offers both inspiration and potential solutions for safety, but not only for safety. The European Commission strategy on sustainable and smart mobility sets out the direction to be taken to make all modes of transport greener. However, we would like to emphasize the importance of a modal shift towards sustainable green logistics and transport chains. In such a scenario, all modes of transport would be combined, but each segment of the transport chain would use the most appropriate mode of transport with particular consideration of the emissions and other environmental properties. Such a multimodal approach, of course, requires the seamless integration facilitated by digital technologies. Finally, I would like to come to a topic that is very close to my heart, and this is the European railway safety culture. We invite all railway parties to be strongly committed to enhancing railway safety by rigorously applying robust safety management and by supporting the development of a positive railway safety culture. Safety is not only about regulation. Safety is about living and about the collective commitment. By developing useful instruments for the sector, the agency is demonstrating its engagement to develop such a positive safety culture. However, we need the commitment of all players to achieve a sustainable and safe performance across the single European railway area. We have just 2 weeks ago launched the European Rail Safety Climate Survey. The deployment of this survey has been designed in 2 phases. The first one had reached out to more than 100 partnerships with volunteering European companies, and from this first phase we have already received more than 40,000 responses. The second phase, which we started on the 16th of June, is a survey that is open to any rail professional in Europe, and it is open until the 7th of October. The dissemination of the results of the survey is also strongly supported by the trade unions, such as the European Transport Workers Federation, ETF, and the Autonomous Train Drivers Union of Europe, ALE. And I am very grateful for their help and motivation. The survey is translated in 22 languages in order to ensure that all railway professionals in all member states can respond to the best of their abilities. Safety is important, and improving safety performance is the commitment of all of us. And with that, I hand back to the moderator, Cyril, to continue with the rest of the program this afternoon.
Torben, the floor is yours.
Yes, so good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're all well, and thanks for joining this webinar. It is indeed a pleasure to be here. This presentation will take you through the latest overview of railway safety. I will provide some background, and then my colleague Francesco Rotoli will take you through the details of the latest overview of safety that we published earlier this year. So in terms of background, background information. First of all, the railway safety establishes that railway safety should be generally maintained and, when practical, continuously improved, taking into account technical and scientific progress and the development of union and international law. And that highlights also the importance to monitor. So in the agency regulation, there is provisions that the agency shall monitor the overall safety performance of the Union railway system, and moreover provide a report every second year to publish a report on the progress on safety and interoperability in the single European railway area. The latest biennial report was published in July 2020, with the next edition due next year. And in the meantime, we published an annual safety overview with the latest data from the national safety authorities. If we go to the next slide, you can just see very short summary of what were the main findings for the data collected for 2019. They confirm an overall positive decreasing evolution at EU level. Significant accidents and resulting casualties have decreased steadily in Europe since 2010, and with 1,552 significant accidents and some 824 fatalities, suicides excluded, the year 2019 was the safest year ever. Next slide. So just go through some additional points before handing over to Francesco. Notwithstanding the overall positive EU picture, caution is still needed, particularly in some area. Taking into account the overall cost of railway accidents remain at about 3.5 billion euros per annum, only for significant accidents. There remains large disparities in safety level between the SERA countries, and the decrease that we saw in significant accidents has mainly been driven by external accidents in which third party are involved, whereas internal accidents showed a more stable trend in the last years. For safety at level crossing, they have been improving in the past decade. Such trend, though, was more significant in the first part of the decade, 2010 to 2016, while less pronounced in the last years, 2017 to 2019. So this was the background, and now I will hand over to Francesco to take you through some of the more details analysis of the safety statistics.
Thank you, Torben, and good afternoon, everyone. After the introduction and also the description of the highlights from the annual safety overview by Torben, I will show the main figures we have extracted from the annual safety overview supporting our discussion today. Let's start with the main safety outcomes. From these figures, we can notice how significant accidents, serious injuries and fatalities have decreased steadily in the last decade. 2019 is the safest year ever, with the lowest value of these indicators, of course, aggregated at European level. Despite these quite positive pictures, still caution is needed, and we would like to share with you some remarks. Let's start with the cost of railway accidents. We have estimated for 2019 a cost of 3.5 billion euro only for significant accidents. The major part of this cost is related to cost of fatalities. Of course, the cost of accidents are a monetary measure of the impacts of railway unsafety, of the railway accidents on the society. Beside the overall, the quite high cost toll of railway accidents, there is still a big variation among countries in the single European railway area. These figures represent the number of fatalities per million train kilometers over the whole period 2017 to 2019. What we can notice is a cluster of 11 member states at the right side of the figure with a value or railway fatality rate quite above the European average. European average, which is 0.2 fatality per million train kilometers, meaning one fatality each 5 million train kilometers. Another observation we would like to present is related to the different trends between internal and external accidents. The reduction in the last decade of significant accidents has been driven mainly by the reduction of external accidents, meaning accidents involving third parties, so accidents to persons and level crossing accidents. The trend instead for collision, derailments, fiery rolling stock and other accidents not falling within the previous categories is quite stable and is stagnating, especially in the last 3 years. These figures, these findings are quite evident also from these other figures. We can see clearly here that the decrease in significant accidents since 2014 is following mainly the decrease in the accidents to persons and in level crossing accidents. Collisions, derailments, fiery rolling stocks and other accidents present a more stable trend. Finally, the last figure we would like to share with you today is related to the accidents and resulting casualties at level crossing. Accidents, serious injuries and fatalities at level crossings decreased in the last decade. Anyway, the decrease is more evident, was more evident until 2016, while in the last period from 2016 until 2019, the safety level at level crossing in Europe is more stable. There is not really a big improvement. This is all from the figure and for this presentation. Thanks a lot for your attention, and we'll be very happy to reply to any question you may have. Cyril, now the floor is yours again.
Well, thank you, Francesco, and thank you, Torben, for this very detailed and instructive presentation. So we've seen that significant accidents and resulting causalities have decreased steadily since 2010, sorry. But still, there is space for improvement, particularly in some areas. The European Union is looking to maintain high standards and to harmonize safety requirements all across the European Union. So now I'll turn to our speakers, and to start with, Inigo Cruz. Let me recall our audience that you are a policy officer dealing with rail safety policy at DG Move, which is the Directorate General for Mobility and Transport within the European Commission. Inigo, could I ask you two questions? First, your general remarks about the trends, the figures shown in the presentation. And secondly, what does the Commission expect from the sector in order to keep improving safety? And what else could be done or could be done better? Please, the floor is yours, Inigo.
Thank you, Cyril. Well, before I address directly your questions, allow me to do a small reflection to share it with you in order to address them. We've seen this fantastic presentation from Torben and Francesco regarding the results on safety, but these are the results. The thing is, why are we getting better? Why are we getting these good results? Still, they can be improved, of course, but that's one question that I wonder myself as part of the European Commission and as part of the rail family. So, and there is one interesting thing. As Commission, we could refer to tons of regulation and legislation that we have produced, but no. Let me use one word, one simple word as an example, the word culture. If we take 2004 directive on safety, rail safety, it's funny to see interesting to see that the work culture, it's a source of differences. It's only refers once, and to say that there may be technical differences and problems because of the different cultural backgrounds of the member states. In 2016, with the new directive, there is a change in mentality. There is an evolution, but a change in the ideas behind, because culture is now referred 3 times, and next to the word safety culture. That positive concept is born, and it's introduced in the directive. And also, we think about culture as an element to join forces to pull together the member states and the sector to work towards a better safety in rail. So I think this is a good thing, and now we are getting somehow the results of this change of mentality, of this work done. Of course, I mean, you as the agency, many of the people who are watching us today, they know that the work done on regulation, particularly we can mention the common safety methods. We could mention as well of the maintenance regulation nowadays, but also the IT tools that we've been creating to share and exchange information in case of a safety emergency or safety information on all this. But also, I would like to support the work done through the networks, the National Safety Agencies Network and the National Investigation Bodies Network. They are doing great in cooperating towards a better performance of the safety in the sector. And of course, we keep working. Legislation is not done. I mean, it's a live process where we try to improve. For instance, I can recall last year we produced the structure reporting to be followed by the national investigation bodies in case of accident. It's with an aim to foster learning, to help others to learn from the elements that is happening, and we are assessing, or the investigation bodies are investigating themselves. But nevertheless, the reports and the research done by the agency in the last years, I think it's invaluable to have a good picture of the sector and the situation in safety. So that's overall what we are. But also, we cannot forget that sometimes accident happens. It is a hard reminder of what's going on, that still there are flaws that we need to address, that the safety is not something that is done. It's something that it keeps evolving, and especially when we are considering the future. We're seeing now digitalization is bringing new challenges in the domain of safety, but also they need to be greener. They need to put more trains on the tracks. All this is also that is going to put some new conditions, new challenge to the safety in rail domain. We cannot forget COVID. I mean, something that no one thought about it before. 2 years ago, no one heard about it, and now we are evolving with it because we need it. So, and in this moment, I always like to say that to quote the Romans, because they have videos as an interesting remark. They say that one should learn even from one's enemies. In our case, in our sector, enemies are accidents, incidents, all the risks to the safety. So we need to learn from them. And this is probably the new challenge. Joseph mentioned before the common occurrence reporting, the common safety methods on the assessment on safety level and safety performance. That's probably the new challenge that we got ahead of us. Probably if we progress in those areas, we will get an improvement in the overall numbers. And now, going now, as I indicated at the beginning, replying to your question on the general results, I said that in 3 words, we are doing good. Yes, but the overall approach is good. The results are paying off, but still, we need to make a great effort to maintain the high level of safety. I mean, we are almost at the level of aviation, but still, I think that we can get at the same level. Why not to go even beyond there? Also, why not ensuring that we eliminate the outdated and duplicated safety measures that are not helping for the smooth operations in rail. Sometimes safety is not only about guaranteeing safety itself, but it also could be considered as a kind of burden. You know, the initial cultural reference I mentioned at the beginning. So we need to tackle it. We need to progress on this area. But let's not forget that another element that comes to our help is the ERTMS. The new this signal system is assisting train operations, and it's helping to a smooth management of the train fleet. and also to increase safety on the operation and getting rid of maybe of some old elements that are no longer necessary. We could say that's tail lights, why not? But still, unfortunately, there are clearly two areas where I think that we need to pay special attention. First of all, rail worker safety. That's clear that we need to keep there, and level crossings. But in the case of level crossing, it's also a good reminder that safety is not only rail safety is not only that thing that can be addressed from the rail family, from the rail sector, but as well from other sectors. When we are referring to level crossing, we need the help of the road sector. We need to keep cooperating, learning from each other to improve the overall safety there. So that's one thing that we should remind in this case. And from the Commission side, we'll pay close attention to that. And now you mentioned what we expect from the sector, right? First of all, embrace the safety culture. I mean, it's a new mentality, it's a new approach, something useful toward the operations and towards the reality of rail. So let's use it, let's embrace it, let's have it, in the way we work, not only from the institutions, not only from the agency, but also from the sector in the daily activities. Safety strategies of the individual companies. Pay good attention to that. It's something that that we need. But above all, if you allow me in one phrase, break the silos. We need to talk to each other. We need that the safety authorities talk to the managers of the infrastructure or to the railway undertakings. But the railway undertakings should talk to the investigators of accidents, to others, to understand each other, to know better what is the situation around a same topic, safety, and addressing the risk. It's not a question of blaming anyone. It's not a question of hampering the independence of the entities, not at all. If we learn from this exchange, something useful, something that we can ask to the sector, with goodwill and cooperation from all the parties, it's possible. And let's not forget that we can use several opportunities. For instance, the networks available, the different forums to exchange this kind of information. I mean, let's do useful things. Let's talk on concrete problems. That is the way that we can progress towards a improvement in the overall safety in the rail sector. And last but not least, also, I would like to thank you, the sector, when they are cooperating in new initiatives, like as I mentioned before, the common safety method in the assessment of safety levels and safety performance. The work done on this area has been impressive, led by the agency, but with the cooperation of the whole rail sector. We're still working on it. So we expect that the sector cooperate with us to produce a useful tool, an effective tool, just as mentioned at the beginning, that allow us to address all the risks and challenges that we got ahead of us. That is quite a lot. We are in a very good situation, but still there is a lot to be done. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Inigo, for your very precise and detailed answer. And I will follow your advice right now by breaking the silos and giving the floor to the sector now, starting from CER, the Community of European Railway and Infrastructure Companies. So, Enno Wiebe, let me recall quickly our audience that you are the technical director of the CER, and that your organization represents around 70 railway undertakings and infrastructure managers. So, Enno, clearly, large differences in safety levels still exist between countries within the single European railway area, which is the European Union, Norway, and Switzerland. So, in your opinion, how could we further help in harmonizing the safety level across Europe? That's the first question. And second one, which are, according to you, the main steps or challenges to converge towards harmonized safety performances? Please. Enno, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And yeah, I would like to pick up the point brought up by the Commission, break-in silos, and I'm very happy that the agency managed today to have both the representatives of the RUs and the IMs on board, hence SERA and the EIM, and that's very important to give you the big picture of safety, because it is a shared system, but it is still a comprehensive system, because we all belong together and we all stick together, we all work together, and we all have interfaces, both technical interfaces as well as into operational interfaces. And above all of this is our approach to safety. I just want to say that I was very happy actually that you mentioned in the very beginning of this webinar that the level of the European safety in Europe is very high. But when we have a look at the figures, I think we need to be a bit honest with ourselves. So we of course see accidents and incidents. We have the statement that the rail transport is the safest mode of land transport, but we should never forget that running railways is still a dangerous business. And this is all about risk mitigation. This is all about managing risk. But we should not be naive to believe that we can go down to a zero risk railway. We have people working in the system, we have fatigue, we have technology working in this, and I would even say life is a risky thing, and the risk already starts when you get up out of bed in the morning. This is where your first risk actually starts. Are you going to slip? Are you going to fall? And this is what we have to take a bit into account when we talk about railways. Nonetheless, our commitment is very much to improve the overall safety level in particular. And here I would like to say harmonize and improve. And the first step for us is raising awareness for safety related issues. That sounds a bit like a buzzword. It sounds a bit like a phrase, but you will be shocked when you see what is happening on a daily basis, both at internal workplaces, within the community, and with third parties. And just to give you one big example, and I always find it shocking when you see level crossing accidents and you just have to go to YouTube. You will find a huge variety of videos there. It is really shocking how stupid people are. And this is something we have to work on. We have to work on the internal issues, but we have to work on external issues, and we have to work on the interface. That means with third parties. And secondly, and that's what Josef already said, we want to work towards a European safety culture. We want to learn from accidents and incidents, and Josef mentioned the issue already. The basis is, of course, the exchange of data on this, and we want to manage risks, as I said, and we want to improve the overall system. It's a step-by-step approach. If you ask me what we can do, it depends very much on the definition of we, but then I would like to address the agency, because the agency has set up something that is really important for the sector, and that is the Joint Network Secretariat. And the Joint Network Secretariat is a platform to facilitate discussions at European level on safety, avoiding national approaches, and define joint measures. And the Joint Network Secretariat, I would like to say that without being pathetic here, but that's really a pilot, it's a pioneer for improving rail safety, and it's the first big step, I would say, for defining a European safety culture, bringing us all around the same table, the agency, the NSAs, the NIBs, as well as the sector, making us talk to each other, actually giving us the chance to talk to each other, and that is very important. So you see, it's a step-by-step approach. Rome wasn't built in a day. We want to say that clearly. It will not come overnight. But if you ask me about the challenges to converge towards a harmonized safety performance, we see a step-by-step approach. And the intermediate step, or the first step, is, and that what we have been doing already, is developing, is defining the framework for a European safety culture, taking into account that we are all different in Europe between the member states. We have different cultures, we have different languages, we have different understandings, but we have to define a common framework for that, and then step by step harmonizing or getting rid of national rules, harmonizing operational rules, and then last but not least, to develop a European safety culture, something perhaps comparable to the safety culture in aviation. So you see already, we are ambitious, we are willing, but it's a step-by-step approach. It will not come overnight. We do have indeed safety cultures, but now we are on the way to harmonize them, to bring them together, and that's the biggest challenge for the years to come. But I do believe we're quite on a good way.
Well, thank you very much, Enno, for this very inspiring reply, which was actually more than just a reply. Thank you. Now let's hear, I hope, the opinion of the European Rail Infrastructure Manager, EIM, Javier Moreno. Can you hear me? And most of all, can you speak?
Yes.
Can you talk? Yeah, perfect. Thanks.
Do you hear me?
So, yes, we can hear you. Yeah, perfectly well. So you are with us on the phone, and we really thank you for being with us. You are, I just recalled the audience, you are the technical manager in charge of rail safety and interoperability at EIM. Your organization is managing more than 50% of the European Union's railways lines. So Javier, which are the main priority areas for further improving safety level across Europe from the infrastructure manager's point of view, of course? And then second question, the number of collisions, derailments and the fires in rolling stock show a stable trend in the last few years. In your opinion, would these areas benefit from a wider information sharing? For example, a systematic and comprehensive European-wide safety occurrence reporting scheme, which would enable not only to learn effectively from major accidents, but also from incidents without victims. Please, Javier, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Cyril, and thank you, ERA, for inviting EIM to this webinar. As you know, safety is among the top priorities of the infrastructure managers, if not the most. In relation to the first question, EIM believes that the following three topics are crucial for improving the safety levels across Europe: safety culture, being risk-based, and the reduction of the level crossings. The safety culture is an area that we need to continue working on, as we are doing nowadays. And furthermore, since safety culture is reflecting the local cultures or within a company, region, or a country, the starting point from where you start improving is different. Having said that, the safety culture will have to be improved locally. However, the tools for improving it should be common. Last but not least, safety culture takes time to be implemented, and it is key the involvement of the top management for its implementation. On the second, on the risk-based is very much related to the safety culture, but as a baseline, the regulation will have to support a risk-based approach by setting requirements that can be fulfilled by using risk-based decisions. And third, we also believe that that in order to improve the safety culture, the level crossings has a key role. And as stated in the ERA safety overview report published recently in March this year, the level crossings represent 30% of the total fatalities per type of accident in Europe between 2015 and 2019. Thus, continuing with the ongoing measures for the removal of the level crossings when possible, and where possible, of course, is a must. And then in relation to the data and the second question, and the information sharing, yes, Europe is a wide variety of culture, climate, and geological, and so the information will have different components, and also that we also have different technical solutions. Sharing of information will help to this, but we have also limited benefit. However, for those elements that we see that there are a common denominator or common information to be shared, of course, it is a must to use tools like the common occurrence reporting, as you mentioned previously. In addition, sharing information about accidents with severe consequences will always give some benefit, at least to confirm that causes are under control. But I totally agree with you, Cyril, with your last comment of your question. I think that sharing data and having the same knowledge of the different incidents or occurrences that are not even related to an accident it will be an added value for the different railway players. Yeah, so thank you very much.
Well, thanks to you for this very interesting reply. Now, a slightly different but quite timely question for Inigo. Available information suggests that during the COVID pandemic, European citizens are concerned about traveling by train and other forms of collective transport. In another webinar held on the 3rd of June, our ERA colleagues presented a recent study carried out by the agency to analyze the COVID-19 risk when traveling long distance by train. So Inigo, which measures may be applied by the sector, in your opinion, to reduce the risk of COVID infections when traveling by train or by any mode, and further reduce the concerns of travelers? Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Cyril. Well, I think that the Commission has been working quite a lot on this issue right from the initial breakout of the COVID at all levels of transport levels. But in particular in rail, I think from services, from DG Move, we've been trying to help the sector to promote different initiatives toward addressing the impact of COVID. But above all, from the experience of this 1 year and a half, I would say that information is the key part. This is what the sector can do better to promote among passengers and all the people involved in rail. Why? Because we know that the most effective measures are, for instance, wearing a face mask or every time we travel in a closed space, but also when possible, some ventilation measures are also being proposed. I think that, well, in your study and your research, you cover it quite in detail, so I'm not going to repeat all these elements. But what we need is to inform the passengers about the need of this measure. It's not something that comes just out of the blue, but it's a scientific reality that can protect them and protect everyone from contagious to stop the spread of the virus. So that's why what the sector can do, first of all, is informing the passengers, promoting among them this health culture, let's say, not only safety, to protect themselves and protect others. For the technical details, for more information on this, I would like to invite all the people who are listening to us to visit your website, the agency's website, and also Commission website, to consider and to check on all the measures proposed and all the research done on this domain that I think will be very useful for all of us.
Well, thanks, Inigo. I think, Enno, you would like to comment maybe on what Inigo just said. Please, the floor is yours.
Let me say, with the issue of the pandemic and the follow-up of a pandemic, we've really been short. For us, the main point is, and here we are closely working together with the agency as well as with the Commission, it is really getting passengers back on board, compensating the significant losses we had during the pandemic. But the most important thing is really to make people trusting in the system, because if people don't trust in the system, in our system, that they are safe on board in terms of hygiene, they will use public transport. And we see it today. It's pouring with rain in Brussels. Nobody's taking public transport. Everybody is sitting in their car. You can hardly believe the congestion outside here. And that is what we have to change. We have to change that mindset again. We have to bring people back on board. But it comes with a lot of trust. And again, it doesn't come overnight, because people have to feel safe on board, and that is something we have to, I would carefully say, redevelop. We have been doing quite a lot, but you can't force people, and that is something where we step by step evolve, I would like to say. But I'm really hoping that we get back to this because of exploiting all the positive potentials of railway transport. And with this, I would like to be very short.
Well, thanks. Thanks you, Enno, for your reaction. Maybe our executive director, Joseph, might want to take the floor to react to what has been said so far?
Well, I have appreciated the discussion so far, and also the last point about the gaining trust is important. As we have seen, and Enno just gave another example that in some areas and in some cities, people avoid public transport, and we need to give them trust back. And trust, of course, can be earned by publishing the figures, but trust is also something emotional, and this works through private and personal experience. And this is something that we always need to bear in mind. In my introduction, I referred to the significant accidents or even to the catastrophic accidents. And of course, the problem is when we have an accident in rail with more than 5 casualties, we are certainly frontline news everywhere in Europe. When there is an accident on the motorway, also with 5 casualties, then it's possibly page 8, fait divers. So this is the difference in the public perception. I also think that this is more a consequence of rail being very safe. So the rare events get the more intention. If you allow me, Cyril, I would like to come back to one of the questions in the chat. And the question was, why do we consider the safety culture of aviation better than rail? I don't think we have made that statement. We have just referred to the sharing of safety-related data, which is better institutionalized in aviation than it is in rail. Safety culture is always a matter of the individual companies as well as of the overall system. And clearly the reference that was made to some incidents in aviation have demonstrated that the companies involved or the company involved didn't have any safety culture at all. And by the way, if you read the various articles, it's almost a learning case on what should not be done, and the best practices could be applied by learning from what has gone wrong in this case.
Well, thank you, Mr. Doppelbauer, for your reactions to all of that. Mr. Javier Moreno, I'd like to give you the floor for a rather technical and precise question. Although safety at level crossings, as we have seen in the report, has been improving in the past decade, we've seen also that such a trend now it's less pronounced in the last years. Moreover, level crossing accident rates vary considerably among SERA countries. Do you have any practice recommendation or any issue to share from the infrastructure manager's point of view on that?
Thank you, Cyril, for your question. So as I stated before, the best recommendation or practice to get rid of the level crossing is, of course, by removing them when and where possible. And by doing that, it's always a question of direct cost. So it is not easy, as you can imagine. And also, depending on the geography, we have some member states where the number of level crossings is really, really high. Furthermore, EIM believes that sharing strategies and plans on the level crossings is a good manner to benchmark the different initiatives, taking into account the different culture and the network dimension of the different IAMs. And last but not least, I would like to mention that increasing the safety knowledge and and related to the safety culture, there are some activities that will help to raise the awareness of the level crossings and inside some risk areas. and we know that some of our members are already disseminating information through the schools and providing this information to the citizens of those areas that are more conflicted in terms of incidents or accidents related to level crossings. So yes, I would summarize that removing these level crossings where and when possible is, of course, the highest priority for us.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your answer. I had now on the chat, I see that we have some questions, and one would be for Torben, who is the team leader here in ERA of the analysis team. Torben, you are asked on the chat that the results are only mean values. Did you also perform statistical analysis, including significance results?
Thanks for the question. So we provide in the report both the annual overviews and the biennial report. We provide the actual figures and whether they are actually absolute numbers or ratios, etc. Those are the values we provide. Then you have also, of course, some measures of averages, and I think also in both the annual overview and also in the biennial report, we also check and determine whether the changes, notably here for 2019, the safest year to date, we check whether that improvement in safety is indeed statistical significant. So yes, it is something we also included in the report to test, is this actually statistical significant? Thanks.
Well, thanks to you. We have another question, and it will be the last one that we take from the chat now. Someone comments on the chat, an attendee, that we need Europe to do massive campaigns to remind people to come back to public transport, to convince people to trust again trains. So it should be the main goal of the public events organized during the Year of the Rail. Who wants to react on that? It's an interesting remark.
Well, perhaps, Cyril, if you allow, this is indeed what the sector organizations, we have Eno and Javier with us, and the Commission and the agency are doing. But the European Year of Rail is not only here to convince all the European citizens that rail is safe. We have the other important contribution of rail, that it is sustainable, that is environmentally friendly. So the European Year of Rail is the massive opportunity indeed to promote all these advantages of rail. And the question is right, that we need to re-establish trust first, and on that basis we can promote rail as the mode of transport of the 21st century.
Well, thank you, Mr. de Paul-Bauer, for these words. We are reaching now the end of this webinar. Just a word to remind you that all the questions from the chat that have not been answered today will be answered later on, and all the answers will be published on the ERA website. We really would like to thank you all, and particularly our speakers today, for their good contribution and participation. We look forward to meeting you again at one of the upcoming ERA webinars after a well-deserved summer break. On the 16th of September, we'll talk about intelligent ticketing. On the 12th of October, we'll talk about technical specifications for interoperability. In the meantime, do not hesitate to continue sending us your questions by using the link provided on the event web page or using the contact form on our website. We will also be very happy to receive your feedback on this webinar via the link provided as well on the webinar webpage on the ERA website. If you would like to stay updated on our activities, please sign in to our database by selecting the button My ERA Profile on the top or at the bottom of our ERA website page. Thank you very much for participating today. We wish you a very pleasant evening. Take care. Bye.